Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Absolute Batman issue 21, written by Scott Snyder with art by Nick Dragotta, colors by Frank Martin, and colors by Tom Napolitano. Batman comes face to face with the Robins this issue as Alfred orders him to flee the scene, since he doesn't stand a chance against the little giant mechs in front of him. The Robins demand Batman disarm himself and stand down so they don't have to hurt him, but Bruce drops a smoke pellet, covering the area in a thick smoke screen. Slade tells the Robins that part of the city has been completely evacuated and Batman is not to leave the engagement alive. He reminds the team that he is just a single man as Bruce wraps his cape around his fist, activating the spikes in the cape and hardening it, turning his arm into a literal Morning Star-like weapon as he tells the Robins that the odds are bad for them. Man, Scott Snyder really knows how to open an issue, giving everyone what they want, Batman versus the Robin. The continued use of the Batsuit in really fun and inventive ways is great, like turning the cape into a goddamn Morning Star. That's so cool. It's something I did not expect. It's just the creative thing that I've been loving about the Absolute Universe, specifically the Absolute Batman side of things. It's just been really creative with how they deploy things like the Batsuit, the Batmobile. Everything around Batman has been really interesting. The Robins think that they can easily take the hero, but Batman leaps onto Duke's armor, blocking his giant staff with the Morning Star before driving the battle axe right into the chest of the armor. Stephanie knocks Bruce off of Duke, slamming him hard into a building. Duke begins his search and recovery mode of Batman, climbing into the building as Dick believes that Batman's bones should be dust after the hit that Stephanie gave him, so he'll probably need medical attention. Again, Batman proves them wrong as he launches himself out of the building with an explosion, grabbing onto Dick's robot and planting charges all over it. Pennyworth, however, tells him that something is wrong as Slade orders Jason to fire a full spectrum barrage. Jason deploys a fine chaff screen above the battle, which cuts off Alfred's comms with Bruce, leaving him on his own. I really like that both the Robins and Batman have their own team back at their respective bases, and that both of the people working for them at those bases work together, as Alfred and Slade used to be partners in MI6. So there's a layer of where they both are really playing off against each other and proving who's the better strategist, like they're making moves with their own respective pieces against each other. I really do hope that Alfred does get a chance to take Slade head on. I think he will, because it's definitely being set up that there is going to be something in that regard, because we keep getting hints at like their backstory and like how they were partners and everything. So I imagine that's coming up in a later issue. The Robins spot Batman as he tries to flee, with Duke giving chase, but thanks to the smoke though, Duke fails to see the caltrops Batman has deployed, causing him to run right into them and crash his bike. Duke is really kind of getting the rough end of the stick in this first part of this issue. Batman is just taking him apart over and over again. I do like that Duke is so prominent in the issue though. Scott did create the character, so it makes sense that he would want to write him a bit more, but man, he's just getting it from every direction. Alfred, meanwhile, is able to watch the Robins fight, realizing that these aren't soldiers fighting for a cause like he thought. They are fighting for release, to let go of the rage and confusion inside of them, and that makes them incredibly dangerous. Jason spots Batman in the smoke and opens fire with his giant assault rifle, decimating a huge portion of the city as he brings a building down on Batman. Harley Quinn gets ready for Batman's escape plan as Dick surveys the destruction, realizing this is not what he signed up for, since they were meant to protect Gotham and they just blew a big hole in it. Dick leaves his mech, planning on laying out some biometric spikes to ensure no one was inside these buildings they destroyed, and anyone who wants to help him can join him. Dick almost immediately leaving the Robins, or like going rogue against them, was something I did not expect. I knew he was very angry with Batman and how he operated, and I know he chose to be a Robin because it was like, oh, they're combating Batman, I can combat Batman now. It's kind of the lesser of two evils, I guess. And I have to wonder if this is going to be like a running thing for him until he eventually does fully leave, where he realizes that, oh, these guys are operating just as bad as Batman, and I don't want to do that. I just want to protect the city, and they're destroying it. And maybe that leads to him becoming his own hero. Maybe it leads to him then becoming Nightwing or something of the like, because I don't think he'll be called Nightwing in this universe, because Nightwing has that whole Batman and Superman like lore stuff going on with it, so he might be called something else, but I could definitely see this being the seeds for him going rogue and becoming his own hero. It also makes me wonder if there is some sort of thing going on where they keep mentioning, or at least, Slade and all that keep mentioning, oh, everywhere is evacuated, it's all safe. Whether that's actually true, and whether maybe there's going to be a part of the story where they find out like, oh no, these guys like lie to us and like we killed thousands of people just to try and get Batman, and they tried to hide that from us, and that makes the Robins go rogue. I definitely see something like that happening in this universe. Slade is not too pleased with Dick going rogue, reminding him that Batman is a murderous terrorist and that he's out to destroy Gotham alongside the man he knows who is running Batman's operation, hinting that Slade is very well aware that Alfred is helping Bruce. Alfred, meanwhile, keeps looking for Bruce amongst the destruction as Harley regales him with some facts about bats, telling him that bats usually stay in colonies, but sometimes one or two wander off alone. But the colony never forgets them and sometimes comes to find them. Above the city, a swarm of bat drones arrive, attacking the Robins and scrambling their sensors. Amongst the chaos, one of the drones manages to find Batman in the rubble, grabbing him and pulling him high into the sky without the Robins ever noticing. There's a nice bit here where Alfred gets on the comms once they get out of the area, and instead of getting angry at Bruce or chiding him for something he did, there's like this fatherly moment Alfred has where he tells Bruce that it's all going to be okay and he's there for Bruce, and it's something that Bruce needed in that moment to be reminded that he's not alone. Back in the past, Bruce acts as Falcone's Batman, listening to the mob boss tell his friends about how Bruce's mere presence makes people pay up, with him only citing how the bat he wields doesn't actually have a soft spot. Their chat is interrupted by Jim Gordon, whom Falcone tries to intimidate, chatting how he knows about Gordon's daughter's graduation, having sent a congratulation basket to her graduation for him, thinking that she'll make a fine police officer. Jim ignores his jabs, only wanting to talk with Bruce for a moment. I love Bruce acting like a child who's been caught doing something wrong here. Like once he sees that Jim is there, the art by Nick Dragotta tells the story, he's, always looking down at the floor. He's trying to like hide his face under his ball cap. His shoulders are kind of like tensed a little bit. He hates what he has to do here with Falcone, but knows he has to do it. But otherwise, Falcone threatens his friends and family. So he's in like a kind of tough position, but Bruce just hates being in this position in front of Jim. And I love how visual that story gets here with Nick's art. Bruce tells Jim that he is working off his debt, something Jim respects, but knows Oswald and Waylon also paid those debts off for him. But Bruce knows now he's got to pay his friends back, and this is his decision. Jim gets what Bruce is doing, having heard the little voices Bruce is hearing in his own mind as well, ones that tell him he isn't good enough for those around him and for others. He reveals that Bruce's parents pulled him out of that headspace, and now he wants to do the same for Bruce, since he feels like he has a debt to the Waynes. Bruce appreciates it and apologizes as he yells loud enough for Falcone to hear, telling Jim to get lost and to not come back. Jim decides to leave, telling Bruce that the bat does have a soft spot. All bats do, and it's where they get their power. Man, I really love that. The Jim giving Bruce this germ of an idea that hopefully in the present Bruce will listen to and follow through on, and realize that he does need those friends around him. He does need that support group. That's what gives him the power, that soft spot. We have seen him backslide thanks to what Bane, Joker, and the Straw Man have been doing, but I just know there's going to be that turn that happens soon at some point where he's going to gather his friends and allies together and realize that, he is actually stronger with them. Back in the present, Jim Gordon's funeral is held and everyone in Gotham attends, with Barbara delivering his eulogy, telling the large crowd that she doesn't know how to summarize her father since he was so much and she had so many memories of him and their time together. She knows that if she had to boil her father down to his core, it's that he was always there and he never gave up on anyone. Bruce watches from the shadows of the roof of the church as Barbara finishes her speech, telling the crowd that if there is any light in Gotham, it's that in the absence of his hands, they will reach out for one another more often. Bullock consoles Barbara as Dick Grayson and the Robins come to meet her, apologizing for her loss and that they'll do everything in their power to bring Batman to justice. Jason knows that Batman deserves street justice, something Dick does not agree with at all. Barbara recognizes who Dick is, knowing that he's an EMT, and Dick knows that because of that, he has seen the damage Batman has done close up, which Barbara doesn't agree with at all. And it's not like the Robins can talk talk either, since they just leveled half the city. I'm really loving Barbara and Dick's first proper meeting here, and how it's starting them out as almost like rivals, not agreeing with anything in the methods they go about doing them. Thanks to some recent announcements, we know that Barbara will indeed go on to become Batgirl, or some variation of Batgirl, and aid Batman in some way, which I imagine brings her to further blows with the Robins. And again, we have that idea of Dick doesn't particularly like how things in the Robins are being run, especially with Jason just blowing things up without a care in the world. So I imagine that's also going to further his story along once he sees Batgirl is out there, someone else inspired by Batman trying to do something good. And I imagine that's going to snowball for him and make him further go rogue from the Robins. The other Robins assure Barbara that the buildings they destroyed were all empty, and Dick reminds her that Batman is breaking the law, something Barbara isn't sure what is the law anymore. Barbara goes to leave, warning Dick not to try and stop Batman in her father's name, since her father would have approved of Batman more than he would have approved of the Robin Initiative. Across the church, Waylon, Harvey, Edward, and Oswald mourn Gordon's death, having known him their entire lives. They discuss if Bruce actually killed Jim, and while Waylon doesn't think he did, Harvey and Eddie aren't so sure, understanding that Bruce is heading down a dark path right now. The group go and play the matchstick game their friend Marcus came up with, and Waylon knows that they have to help not just Bruce, but each other out as well. We finally learn what the group has been up to, and it's kind of like what we saw in the last issue where Waylon was trying to figure out what was going on with all his friends, and we find that Oswald reveals that recently his club has just been dead because no one wants to hang out with him anymore, and because of that a group of goons tried to take him out, but he got the better of them before they could, blowing them all away. Two-Face meanwhile has continued his little killing spree, citing how this man named Victor was put away for life back when he was DA for carving people up, and I'm pretty sure this is Victor Zsasz. The way Harvey talks about him makes it sound like it was Zsasz, definitely, carving people up from the feet up. Definitely sounds like something Victor Zsasz would do. Harvey reveals that while following Victor, he kept thinking about how easy it would be to kill him, but then he would tell himself that that isn't something he does. I like the little hints at both sides of Harvey coming out at various times, with Two-Face being something that kind of like possesses Harvey, and he doesn't really know what to do, or he can't stop it. Like he's just kind of like watching through his own eyes as this part of his body takes over him. It's really an interesting take on Two-Face. It's something we've seen before, and I really am interested to get into Two-Face and figure out like what his deal is, because we've had little hints like this that really make it seem really terrifying to be Two-Face. And I'm looking forward to what Scott has in store for that. Oswald figures that the guys they were should be buried next to Jim, since he's not Ozzy anymore, he's the Penguin. Harvey is Two-Face, Eddie is the Riddler, and Waylon is the Croc. Waylon takes offense to that, knowing that his friends don't believe that, but Oswald merely removes Waylon's medallion from his skin, and the man instantly begins turning back into Killer Croc, as Eddie makes Oswald stop. Waylon, though, is still in control of himself despite becoming the monster, telling his friends that they are still themselves, and they can keep it that way by helping each other, and that includes Bruce. Waylon being the grounding rod, not just for Bruce, but for this entire group, is just fantastic. It's a really meaty bit of character for someone like Killer Croc, who's usually relegated to the heavy muscle thug or goon to a different villain. And I really like that they've made him an active member of this little group and thing that's kind of keeping this whole group together. It's such an interesting take on the villain. Well, not even a villain in this universe. He's still literally a good guy, and he's actually helping Bruce out. As his friends decide what to do next, Bruce goes back to working construction, pondering the city out on one of the metal girders high up a building. His boss calls out to him to come meet some investors, but Bruce merely waves at them, causing the group to move on. One of the black-suited investors, however, stays behind, approaching Bruce and walking out onto the girder himself, as it's revealed to be Jack Grimm. Jack is finally glad to meet Bruce face to face, as Bruce flies into a rage and tries to attack Jack, who calmly stops the man's fist with a single hand, telling him that there is no need for violence. I can't believe that this is actually the first meeting Bruce and Joker have. They've been dancing around each other since, issue 1, and the restraint here not to do that meeting much earlier, let alone in the 21st issue, is really something. It's great. I've loved the build-up of both of these characters and the collision course they've been put on. Bruce screams that he knows what Jack really his, but the villain will only say that he's the man that made Bruce. But back when he did that, this was all just a fun side project, but after seeing what Bruce has become as Batman, he knows he can't imagine a life without him anymore. Now, I've talked about this in my previous reviews about how there's this symbiotic relationship between Bruce Wayne or Batman and the Joker. One can't really exist without the other. Joker has freely admitted that multiple times in multiple different iterations of Batman and Joker, but Batman is someone who doesn't. And I do like that that's what Scott is going for here again, where it's like this is something that transcends multiverses, that these two characters cannot exist without each other. And I like how he's taking that to the nth degree, to the point where the Joker in this universe literally created Batman because he was bored and wanted a joke, and then realized, oh, I actually need this to like function because this is making life so much more interesting. It's giving life challenge. And I really like that. And I really like that they have finally sort of acknowledged that that is like the whole deal with these two. Jack tells Bruce that he wants this dance to last forever, morphing into the Joker. Bruce isn't scared, but Joker pulls the old jump scare routine, causing Bruce to stumble backwards and fall off the building. Joker grabs the man, telling him that he doesn't get to die yet, not until he sees Batman reach his full potential and learn that Batman isn't Bruce's to end. It's the Joker's. As their little confrontation ends, a project at Arc M activates, and the being who will become Clayface finally takes form, with the disembodied hands transforming its form into that of Batman. This is kind of our first look at Clayface. We've seen sort of images and previews from Nick and Scott over the last few months, but this is our first official real look of the character, and it's great. I like the idea that it's all these like weird disembodied hands that grow up out of the clay and like mold a shape into what he wants to be. In this case, he wants to be Batman, which makes me think that he's going to pose as Batman and do some like horrible shit around the city and just further make people think that Batman has gone rogue or Batman is evil now and is doing some evil things. That feels like where that is headed. And maybe that is what brings in Batgirl, and the Robins maybe see that, you know, something else is going on here. There's a couple of different ways they can take it, and I cannot wait to see what they do with Clayface and the rest of these characters that we got a good meaty chunk of character development in this issue from.
Absolute Batman issue 21 really kicked things up in the Batman versus Robin department. The entire issue based around that, and I love it for it. I love that it dived into the Robins not exactly being the best people to go after Batman, thanks to all of the destruction they cause. There's a bit of a hypocrisy there between them and Batman and how they both operate, and I love that the book is getting into that, especially with Dick Grayson, who is beginning to sort of realize, oh, maybe this isn't exactly what I signed up for. The highlight of the issue for me, though, was the flashback between Jim and Bruce, and how Jim is instilling all of this stuff into Bruce about needing people around you, needing those who look after you and who can help pull you up out of the darkness. Something that present day Bruce needs more than anything else right now. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what Scott has in store for him in the future, with all of his friends also trying to help him out. Friends who are usually villains and who have had really interesting roles in Bruce's life, specifically Waylon Jones, Killer Croc, who is just a fantastic new addition to the Bat family of characters here, and he's got so much to do. And I love seeing all of this stuff sort of come together and start pushing the story together and pushing it into a really interesting place. I'm going to give this issue a 9.5 out of 10.